representing digital Sparx marketing. He's out of San Francisco. First time ever in Charlotte, so let's give him a nice hometown welcome. Let's welcome to the stage Bob Tripathi. Bob, come on up.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the warm-up. Glad he warmed you guys up because I'm told I have a very soothing voice, so in the morning I might make you all go back to bed. So thank you. How's everyone doing? Great, yeah. I went to your local place, Fahrenheit. Pretty cool views. I felt I'm in Chicago, but yeah, good job, guys. So I'm going to be talking about strategic content marketing, and it's all about how to do more with less, right? And I have a few topics that I'm going to cover, but before that, let me introduce you. I've been in the industry, digital marketing, back in the day when I started in 2000, 2001. We used to call it online marketing, we used to call it e-marketing, we used to call it e-business, all kind of stuff, which we call digital marketing. Over the years, I've been very fortunate to work with some really cool startups. Back in 2005, I fell in search, paid search back in 2001. This was before Google AdWords was around. Kept going at it, started doing SEO, had my small web development company in early 2000 before the crash. Then I worked for a SaaS company, B2B. Then I worked for Discover for a few years. I built the whole search center of excellence, along with started the social program. This is 2008 time frame. Then for a year I had a brain freeze, so I started working for Sears for a year. I thought I'll help them. Ended up I'm getting a lot of gray hair after working there for a year. But then at 2011, I thought I want to build a culture and I want to do something on my own. So I started Instant E-Training, and it was an online education company where we used to teach people on digital marketing. Did that for 7 years, and from the past 18, 19 months, I run my own B2B digital marketing services company called Digital Sparx Marketing. That's a little bit about me, but I've also written in between a book on content marketing that I'll give away at the end. So stick around. So after my book, the other things I do is I live in the Bay Area too. So I work with startups, do a lot of marketing mentoring with 500 startups, NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center, and one in Chicago as well. Of course, this is my 8th or 9th or 10th digital summit in 2019 across the country. I was in Tampa a couple weeks back, and I'm here to your city, which is kind of beautiful. Then I didn't expect anything, so good job, guys. And yeah, I also do a lot of interviews, and the rest of the time, me and my daughter, we are tennis fanatics. So she plays in junior USTA tennis. Super excited, so I play with her all the time. And so that's a little bit about me. This is my podcast. So if you guys listen to podcasts, do everyone listens to podcasts? Good. Please subscribe to my channel. We'll listen to all the podcasts. We have a lot of speakers from here. And how original the name, right? Bobcast. Super creative. All right. So this is the agenda. What I'm going to talk for the next 25, 26, 27 minutes is I'm going to be talking about content creation, the process, what you need, the persona, how to make your unsexy content into sexy content. I'm going to talk about buyer journey, talk about SEO, building your content team, and yeah, everything content. So and repurposing, that's another thing. But what I see is there is a race for content creation. I was just we hired a content writer, and then I was just looking at the jobs, and there are so many jobs out there. Everyone wants to hire a content writer, right? And everybody is a content writer, even if they have written a small blog post about the new shoes they bought. They consider themselves a blogger these days, which is fine, you know. But this data like this, the charts like this, further validates my point. And the point is that there's a lot of resources, which is basically both time and money, spent into content creation. And there is a madness, you know, if you talk to Robert Rose and many of those people, they'll tell you the same thing, is everyone tries to create a lot of content. So you have all these content calendars that, hey, we need to produce 2 blogs a week, or we have to produce ebook or a webinar. So there is this mad arms race. And my theory behind it is don't create a lot of content. You don't need a lot of content. You just need few, because what we do know from Apple is less is more, right? It's all about user experience. The tough thing to do in UX or in life, I guess, is simplifying things, because it's very easy to create a lot of content. You have these calendars, but the real challenge and the real art of marketing comes when you are creating less content, so less is more. What we do see is content is actually, there's a triage, right? A good content, a targeted content can get you super engagement. And it doesn't matter what industry you work with. I work for a financial services industry, right? How exciting can you get? And customer experience, that's also part of content. And of course, your content has to be created so you can acquire customers. That's the end all be all, right? That's why we're here. We live in a capitalist society. And that this triage of engagement, customer experience, and acquisition should be at the forefront of every content that you create. If you do not meet these three objectives, then I suggest, I recommend, do not create any new content. One thing I've seen over and over again, and it's sometimes it's not our fault, but we don't think through the process. So there are like 9 steps that I like to follow, which is part of your content creation process. And even though a lot of us work in the industry from a long time, most of the times we get so much sucked into the day-to-day stuff that we forget the content and the process, basically why we are creating the content. What are the objectives? So the very first thing you should really think about is what are your objectives? Who is your target audience? You cannot create content for everyone. Like, HubSpot has done a tremendous job. They've built this huge company out of amazing content. Any type of help you need, you will see that HubSpot has that content resource. I think the biggest thing in life, I guess, is we always think of what can I get. But when you create content, this is so true in content, is think about how can be I of service to the other person. So basically, how can my content help the reader, right? And that is, how can our content help them? And of course, you got to think of the content format. How will you engage, which is your bells and whistles. Too much design is also distracting. Design with a specific transaction intention, which is functional design, is what it's about. And then, of course, how will you weave your branding? Like, for example, the book I showed you was Instant Content Marketing Success, which was part of my earlier company. And are you leveraging data? Are you looking at data after you publish a content? So these are the 9 steps that you can look and walk through it. But my suggestion is, before you start, go through these 9 steps. If you fail on any one of those, your objectives for that content doesn't match, then stop right there, go back. All right, this is I'm sure you guys hear about this about a lot, is building personas. But it's super critical, it's been around, the inmates are running the asylum. That's how the whole thing started. But we are using a lot, and there are personas in it. And what you want to basically hit when you create marketing personas is you want to understand what are the pain points. The best marketing is not about your features. It's about benefits. And if your content, your marketing is solving their problems, if you're solving someone's pain points, then your content hits the mark. And the other thing when you're building your persona is why they should consider your company, and what are the typical goals. It could be anything, right? And what are the objectives? Basically, what do you want them to do? And those are building blocks. So for example, for one of our clients, we build a persona like that, like what is the personal background? You have to understand humans, because we are in the business of humans, like right now, right? I visited your city, I know you better, I know Fahrenheit, I know this convention center, and that's how I get to know everyone. Same with personas. It's not the actual people. Personas can be tricky too, because there are certain stages in your business life cycle where you have your current customer data. When you have current customer data, that's your current persona. But then the other persona is the aspirational persona, which is where you want to go. And those are two different kinds of persona, which again, you can create both of them. So for example, here we also, when we build persona, you should look at the goals, the challenges, what is their day-to-day that drives Candace, right? And that is how you build a persona. This is so true in B2B marketing. Decision is not made by a top level. So if you ask any sales guy, like, hey, what kind of leads do you want? How many are B2B here? Few. Good, good. I mean, humans at the end of the day, it doesn't matter B2C. But if you ask any sales guy, right, what kind of leads can I drive for you? They'll say, oh, get me the VP, get me the director, get me the COO, CMO. So their sales approach is very top down. But as marketers, we do know that it's not top down. Like so many of you could be, how many of you are managers or specialists at your company? Yeah, a lot of you, right? So you guys are the influencers. You are here, you spend your couple days here, 3 days, take all your notes, go back, tell your boss, hey, this is what I learned, this is what we should implement, execute, things like that. So you are the influencers. Then after the influencers, we have the approvers, which is typically people at the director level. And then the final is the decision maker. We do know that all of these three roles consume content in a much different way. So for example, for somebody who's at an influencer level, you might be more tuned to attend a webinar, or you can spend a couple days here. But your directors, your VPs, your CMOs may not be able to spend a couple of days here at the conference or sit through a webinar. So you got to create different kind of content for them. And what we do, and what everyone should do, is at a very basic level, map your content to your target audience, which is the persona. Because, for example, if somebody's at a CMO level, you don't want to give them like a whole guide or a book because they're not going to read it. Instead, you want to create a small snackable content, which is short form, of course, and that is, like 10 ways to increase your ROI from marketing program. And that way, they have those key takeaways. So once you have mapped your content, we use automation. We are the preferred agency vendor for Marketo. And what we do is we create different streams, which is between a researcher, approver, and decision maker. So we create these streams, we create the content assets, and then we target each of those personas in a different way. I was talking to some attendees yesterday during happy hour, and I think one of the question was, I don't know if you're in the audience, but raise your hand if you are. But they say, we are in a very dull industry. How can we make content sexy? So, it doesn't have any content, or anyone doesn't have sexy written on it, right? But basically, if your content is targeted towards that person, you're going to see that your content is automatically very attractive to them. So it doesn't matter if you get only 50 hits or 50 downloads, but if you get 2 customers out of it, that's a 4% conversion, right? Which is amazing. So whatever, the beauty is in the eye of something, right? You guys know that. And that's what content is all about. The second step, once you have your process, once you have your personas nailed down, is buyer journey. I'm sure you hear a lot about the buyer journey during the last couple of days. But a customer journey, a buyer journey, as simplistic. For example, my industry friend, Dan Genghis, we used to work back at Discover, and he's just written a book on customer experience, and we were chatting, and one of the things he said was he was in a hotel, and then in the middle of the night he wanted to go use the restroom. And of course he woke up at like 2 or 3 or something like that, and then he stepped out of his bed. It was all dark, and suddenly the lights went out, so basically the lights guided him towards the restroom, right? Now that's customer experience, and I'm pretty sure it was not that hotel with 2 trees, but what it is somebody at the hotel, at the experience, they actually slept on the bed, for all you know. And then they mapped out the customer journey. So as simple example as that. One of the biggest things I've seen that we in B2B marketing we do is we do not fill out our own forms. So at a very simple exercise, go back to your website, your business, B2C or B2B, and see how that experience is. For a B2C, the first thing I do when I take in new clients is I buy a product and see how it gets delivered, how I get notification, what happens once it gets delivered, how's the box and things like that. And that is what a customer journey is all about. And again, what we see in customer experience, which is huge, and I think there were some sessions here as well, but you're looking not just at your user interface or your experience, but you're also mapping out the journey. Personalization is super critical. Personalization is not just having your first name in an email. It goes way beyond that. And then unified messaging. So for example, if you call UPS, for example, today, will you get the same experience on the phone, at the store, from the driver? I think you might, and that is what unified messaging is about, is all the channels that talking the same talk. Understanding buyer journey, which is awareness, consideration, decision. You guys know all of this, I'm pretty sure. But one of the biggest thing I've found in content creation, and we work with some clients which are really tough and dull industry. Like one of our clients was operational excellence. Like how dull of an industry that could be, according to me. So what do? You can't write content for them. So what you have to do is you have to leverage the internal SMEs, the subject matter experts. And if you need a template, email me and I'm happy to send this template too. But the SMEs are the ones who are going to give you the content or the business inputs. And once they give you the business inputs, that's when the marketing flair comes in. And content creation and leveraging SMEs are super critical. Again, finishing up on a buyer journey, basically you should look at your awareness stage, you should look at your consideration and see what content goes along the path. So for example, in a classic B2B buying decision, we see that at the decision stage, people are asking for case studies, of course testimonials, but also ROI and feature comparisons. Those are some of the things people are asking at different stages of their buyer journey. How's everyone feeling? Yay, say yeah. All right, everyone said. All right, SEO and content. SEO, I mean, a lot of the content came about because of SEO. The first thing that everyone did was, let's optimize this content, because back in 2007, everyone realized Google loves content and we love Google, right? So because of that, there was whole SEO, and even, I've been doing SEO since 2001 right now, and even I see people have the same questions that they had back in 2002, 2003, and the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? And SEO is a classic example of that. The reason we create content or blog or anything is to capture the long tail, right? Because long tail is where the action is. So you want to create few content, but create for your long tail. For example, you have the Google One Box and you have the PAAs, which is people also ask. How many of you leverage PAAs to create new content? Oh, very few. You guys are way ahead. But yeah, you should leverage PAAs, which is people also ask. And that is one way to create content, because those content will get you higher conversion than anything else. Again, as I said, SEO is a classic case of more the change, it stays the same. 2002, we had the same issues, the 4 building blocks of SEO: on-page, link building, engagement, and technical SEO. It's interesting because technical SEO is making a huge comeback of sorts, because people stop focusing on that. So now I see a lot of people in their LinkedIn profile mentioning, I do technical SEO, things like that. But technical SEO is where the geeky side of us comes in, right? And with technical SEO, your schema, your server settings, all of those amazing stuff. And then, of course, the link building on-page and stuff. When you look at on-page SEO, there are 4 big elements. One is a keyword. The other is your page tagging. What I mean by page tagging is on pages. So many sites that I see where they are not cross-linking to other pages on this site. And that is what it is on-page optimization all about, not just your title, description, things like that. Engagement objects, we do know that the reason Google Analytics is free is because they want to measure the data. And they want to measure the site stickiness, how long somebody stays on your site. And how do you do that? It comes with videos, right? It comes with graphics. There are so many software out there where you can create a video out of a blog. And those are all contribute to your engagement objects. The more the engagement, the more people are likely to stick around, right? And relevance. Relevance is super critical. Again, if you create your buyer persona and then you create content which is relevant to them, you're already way ahead of the curve when it comes to SEO. And keyword research, there is this whole fallacy in SEO. It's like, oh yeah, just give me the keywords, I'll create content and I'll wordsmith my things in that content, right? Have you all heard that before? Yeah, I see you smiling. Good. Thank you. You're with me. My philosophy is don't do that. Just create a topic. Just take a topic, whatever that is, which is relevant to your customers, and then give your writers that topic. And when you are very topical, when you're very focused, what you will see is the keywords automatically flow in it. And that is what it's all about. PAAs that I mentioned about, it's all about searcher intent. And then, of course, then you create content, you mine your data, see what's working, what's not working, and then again refine and start that process all over again. Keyword buckets is super critical when you're curating your SEO strategy. So every topic of content that you create, you can create a bucket out of it, and there are so many other keywords related to that. So create some kind of a keyword bucket. The biggest thing I've seen with SEO is, at the surface level, it's super straightforward, right? But what happens is the complexity goes on when you basically are scaling. So for example, I worked like CS.com. We had millions and millions of pages. Of course, those were dynamic. So the basic stays the same, but the reason why people forget SEO is because they don't have as part of their SEO development best practices. And when you don't have SEO as part of your development best practices, that is when people miss out. So the number one thing you want to do is work with your SEO folks if you're not the SEO and create your best practices guide internally. Once you have the best practices guide, you won't miss it. And if you won't miss it, you're going to leverage SEO great. Now, repurposing content, that's the next topic. Again, my whole suggestion to you today is don't create more content. There's too much content out there already, and you're just polluting the planet. Save the planet. Create good content, right? And the trick is repurposing. Repurposing is basically you take anything or take any one form of content and then publish it in many different formats. And for example, we did this for a client where we actually did a webinar for them, and from the webinar we had 9 different content types. We repeated that for 6 months and we had 54 pieces of content, and we started doing this webinar like once a month or something. So can you imagine 6 times 54? You do the math, right? Too early. But that is how the power of repurposing content is all about. And again, this is what I was mentioning. From one webinar, we created a few blog posts. We created a video. We created all these social media posts and industry insights, thought leadership paper, and an ebook out of it, and an email marketing template out of it. So you can repurpose your content in many different ways, and there are many ways you can repurpose that you see on the screen, like host a webinar, do this, but that you can take later when you get the slides. And of course, we all work with content calendars, right? And there are so many softwares, there are so many tools out there that you can create your content calendar, but make it simple. When you make it complex, that's when people miss it. And content calendar helps us to keep focus and brings everyone in a collaborative manner to pitch in. But what happens is because we all want to sound and look very intelligent at times, we make things complex. And when we make things complex, that's when people miss out on things. So my suggestion is keep it simple. I'm not going to say the last S. Like we do it with our podcast too, with our podcast, we get all these amazing guests, a lot of the speakers from Digital Summit, they are on our podcast, and from that podcast, what we also do is, we record it on Zoom, and from a podcast, we basically release a video, then we create some preview videos, we post it on LinkedIn and other social posts, we create some blog posts out of it, of course with email marketing, things like that. So any content you take, your job should be to ask yourself, can I repurpose this content? And my guess is every content you can tell, yes, you can repurpose. Lastly, I want to touch on content team models. How many of you have a content marketing team more than 2? Super few. Yeah, okay, great. Are you guys in the right session, by the way? All right, so content team models. So it's interesting. There is content marketing was everyone's golden boy, if I may, a few years back, and people went out and built all these big content teams and the chief content officer and whatnot, and fancy titles which looks and sound great. But, one of the things I hear time and again is who owns content marketing within your company. I've seen content writers in the creative department. I've seen content writers in the corporate communications department. And sometimes even the development guys have content writers with them. So that is a huge question. And when I look at the whole team model, and having built few teams in my career, there are basically 3 content team models that I see really work. One is you have a fully agency outsource where you have your content and you hire an agency, a third party, and they create all the content for you, and that's called a fully agency outsource model. The other is in-house model where you have your in-house content writers and your job is to create all the content within the company. And the third model, which typically works really well, is the hybrid team model. In a hybrid team structure, what you have is you have someone within your company who basically gives inputs, right? The business inputs, and the folks outside, which could be your agency, consultant, writer, whoever, they create the other content. And those have usually worked really well. But when you build your content team, there are a few questions, just like anything you should ask. What kind of internal skills we have, right? So just because somebody can write a one-liner copy doesn't mean they can create a long-form content. Or somebody who has been in the publishing industry, that doesn't mean that they can create marketing content. Because marketing, writing marketing content, the copy and all, it's a different skill. And it takes time to develop over many, many, many years. Same with your content team. You got to get it on paper. What's my team going to look like? And what can we do internally? And what can we outsource or give it to someone else outside our company to do it? Of course, you got to create your content marketing process. And leveraging SMEs is interesting because everyone has an SME within your company. And there are many ways to get inputs from them. So, for example, one of the clients we are working with, their SME was like super technical. So we asked them for a content, like maybe a 3-page something, and he came back and he wrote like a 12-page guide. And he threw all his knowledge that he learned for the past 25 years in that piece of content. And your job as a marketer then is basically to slice and dice the content that you want. Some of the best ways I've learned on how to leverage SMEs is essentially just interview them for an hour. And go back to the content process. What are your objectives? What do you want to get out of it? And what are the pain points that you see on the outside? Because a lot of times these SMEs are so entrenched that they live by the internal jargons, but they don't know what the searcher intent is. And so, but you know it. So you take that, and that's how you interview and leverage your internal SMEs. But again, at the end of the day, marketing is all data driven. And you gotta take your traffic data, your demographic data, your social metrics, how's the content performing. Just don't go on the simple page views or hits or things like that, but look at the conversion, track it. If you don't have the mechanism that you're not able to track it all the way through, then make sure that you are able to. And that's where you get all the metrics, which content is converting better. And you'll be surprised when you look at those analytics that the content which is the least viewed basically converts better, and great, then create more of it, right? And then finally your search and keyword data. These are all critical points that is part of content marketing. But here's my book. So go to my website. It's at bit.ly/bob-ebook. You can download it. I think I have like about 8 co-authors, all industry leaders who have contributed to the book. Super nice read. If you can't download, email me. But that's all I got. Keep in touch. That's my email. And thank you so much for sticking around. Thank you.